Noswaith dda. Good evening to you all, and welcome to the webinar entitled Putting Traceability to the Test, Rhoi, Tarddiad ar brawf. So, croeso I chi ar noswaith braf am unwaith heno. So, now you, Gwyn Howells, fi yw Prif Weithredwr Hybu Cymru. My name is Gwyn Howells. I'm HCC's Chief Executive. So a very warm welcome. And if we undertake the sort of domestic arrangements, and if I highlight those first of all for this webinar, there is no Welsh translation available tonight. So if os oes rhywun eisiau siarad neu gofyn cwestiwn yn Gymraeg, dwi'n hapus i fod yn gyfieithydd i wneud hynny. And I'm sure all of you are more than familiar with webinars and Zoom and team meetings now, so the usual rules apply. If you want to ask a question, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. If you want to text that question, we will endeavour to answer the question as soon as possible. Alternatively, of course, you can raise your hand in the normal fashion, and I will come to you to allow you to ask the question. So I think they're the domestic arrangements. We've got probably just short of an hour of presentation and discussion. So I think without further ado, I just introduce briefly this piece before we go on to the three speakers that we've got tonight. I think probably just a top line, we have in Wales, and we are very, very fortunate that we have some very, very good farming systems in terms of lamb and beef. We have a fabulous temperate climate where we can produce lamb and beef very naturally on grass-based systems. And that, over the last few decades, has afforded us the position in the marketplace where we have them very, very strong brands in Welsh lamb and Welsh beef in particular. And they are not only brands in Wales, but more importantly in other markets which are very significant for us in terms of the rest of the British Isles and indeed internationally. And I think when you have a very strong brand or brands as we do, I think we need to ensure that we have some protection for those brands. And that means protecting the credentials and the provenance and the promise that the brand brings to the ultimate consumer, and all the players in the supply chain, including the farmers who produce the product, the processors who are the route to market, and the consumers who on which we rely for the returns from those brands back down the supply chain. So I think it is a role that HCC needs to play in terms of devising systems and processes that protects the integrity of those brands. And that work started in earnest with the PGI and the PGI inspections many years ago, indeed at the turn of the century. And more latterly with the technology that we're going to talk about tonight, called Oritain, and that technology started with lamb in 2018, and we'll hear about that. And this evening is an extremely important and exciting time in that we are launching the same service, same robust service for the Welsh Beef brand, and therefore we hope to launch, so we are launching that now, and that's a very exciting step on the brand's journey in terms of beef. Now then, without further ado, I'm going to ask the first of our speakers to brief us on where we are at the moment, i.e. what have we got in terms of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef brands and the PGI status that they have afforded to them. So Kirsten Hughes, Red Meat Executive at HCC, is going to kick off with a presentation on those brands. And we will take questions at the end of each of the three presentations. And so we'll take questions at the end of Kirsten's in around 10 minutes time. So Kirsten, can I hand over to you, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just share my screen with you all. There we are. Hopefully you can all see that. So yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of a summary, a bit of an overview of the PGI Welsh Lamb and PGI Welsh Beef scheme. So both Welsh Lamb and Welsh Beef have been awarded protection by the EU and the UK. So initially protection was provided through the European Protected Food Name Scheme. Welsh Lamb was registered back in November 2002 and Welsh Beef in July 2003. And you can see the logo on the right there, the yellow and blue one, which is the PGI logo, which you're hopefully familiar with, which is applied to all PGI protected products. Following Brexit, the UK then established a similar GI scheme for the UK, and this is to protect food names within the UK, but it replicates the rules and requirements of the existing EU scheme. And the logo that the UK have introduced is the black logo to the right there, and you'll see that being integrated onto packaging over the next 3 years. So protection through legislation means that the authenticity and the origin of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef can be guaranteed, but it also protects the products against imitation, and it allows us to ensure that we're supporting businesses who are selling genuine Welsh lamb and Welsh beef. There are currently 88 registered food names in the UK, much lower than in a number of other European countries, but the numbers have been growing in Wales over recent years, in the UK in recent years, and Wales has been a significant contributor to that, with 16 protected food names within Wales alone. So what qualifies to be sold as Welsh lamb and Welsh beef? Well, when a product is registered for protected food name status, we include a detailed specification for the product, which is published. And what I've done is summarise those specifications for Welsh lamb and Welsh beef for you here. So first and foremost, lambs and cattle should be born and reared in Wales. So they must be on Welsh holdings for their whole lives to qualify. Lambs and cattle should also be prime, they should not have bred, and lambs should be slaughtered under 12 months of age, and cattle should be slaughtered between the ages of 12 months and 48 months of age. Traceability is at the core of our PGI, and that must exist throughout the supply chain, from farm through to fork. Lambs and cattle must be slaughtered and processed in HCC approved premises, and slaughter is permitted outside of Wales. And all Welsh lamb and Welsh beef products must carry the trademark logo. So that's the Welsh lamb or the Welsh beef logo alongside the appropriate geographical indication symbol. So enforcement is split into two for the PGI. Firstly, HCC has responsibility for enforcing in abattoirs and cutting plants. And as a part of that role, we have appointed an independent certification body to undertake annual inspections and spot checks for all abattoirs and cutting plants that wish to brand Welsh lamb or Welsh beef. So there are currently 58 approved sites who we inspect annually, and we also do spot checks at 25% of our members each year. As I said, those approved sites are not restricted to Wales. We have approved premises throughout the UK. The inspections involve essentially a traceability of an assessment of traceability, and meat sourcing, but we also require evidence of due diligence and compliance with legislative requirements. So the second part of enforcement falls into the jurisdiction of trading standards, enforcement authorities, and so they take on auditing and checking the sales of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef are appropriate in all retail, so independents, multiples and wholesalers. So how have we enhanced the integrity and traceability of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef? Well, as Gwyn mentioned in the introduction, in 2018, we partnered with Oritain to try and strengthen the integrity of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef, raise the profile of them on a global scale, and also to act as a deterrent to imitation and protect producers who are genuinely selling Welsh lamb and Welsh beef. So in 2008, that partnership started with Welsh lamb, and we have recently added Welsh beef to that programme, which is you'll hear a lot more about shortly from Oritain. So Oritain will explain the science of it all in a moment. You'll hear from Stew. But if I just explain to you what the partnership has allowed us to do. So we've established fingerprint profiles for both Welsh lamb and Welsh beef. And that allows us to sample products throughout the supply chain to ensure only genuine Welsh lamb and Welsh beef is actually branded as Welsh. So we collect samples from abattoirs, cutting plants, wholesalers, butchers, supermarkets, online retailers and restaurants. And we collect samples across the UK and also in export destinations. And we also ensure that sampling happens throughout the year. We then send those samples off for analysis by Oritain, and they analyse those against an agreed profile for Welsh lamb and one for Welsh beef. And feedback of that is then provided to HCC. If a sample is found not to be consistent with the Welsh origin profile, we would then request a second sample be collected and tested. And should that second sample come back as not consistent with the Welsh origin claim, HCC would then work with enforcement authorities to investigate further and take action as necessary. Sampling is undertaken on a random basis. However, where concerns are raised by the supply chain or by enforcement authorities, we can undertake we can undertake additional checks, and samples can be collected for businesses where there are concerns. So I know there's some enforcement authorities actually on this webinar today. So if any of you have any sites of concern, that's something that if you speak to HCC about directly, we can progress that. So that was very quickly a snapshot of a PGI scheme and what it is and where we are now, and how we've integrated Oritain into our work. So I'm happy to take any questions now, and then Stew will talk you through the science of it all in a moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten, for that whistle-stop tour of the brands and the PGI. I think I may have a question here from David Jarrett, and I will read you the question, Kirsten. How long do you think the GI UK protection label will take to be recognised by consumers, and how can we explain and promote it? So this is the new UK GI logo.
Yeah, so the UK have brought in their new UK GI logo to replace the EU logo. Businesses have got 3 years to integrate that into their packaging. So there's obviously going to be a time lag before that logo is going to be prevalent on, retail shelves. So HCC, we're actually currently undertaking a review of our brand, and we're going to work with industry and ensure that we take them along in that transition period, and then also working with Welsh Government and DEFRA where possible to try and raise awareness of the new UK logo in the same way, hopefully, that we've done, that we've had success with over the last sort of 5 to 6 years promoting and supporting the PGI logo in the European market. But those discussions are very much still ongoing.
Okay, thank you, Kirsten, and diolch, David, for that. I hope that answers your question. But it is going to be a bit of a tightrope, Kirsten, isn't it, in terms of we will have, in effect, the PGI one for the foreseeable future as well, the European one, and also, as David asked about, the UK one, which is a brand new one since January. So I suspect, Kirsten, will it be a case of selecting the appropriate logos for the appropriate market? It's the horses for courses scenario, probably, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, if you're supplying into the export market, for example, you may wish to continue using the PGI logo because that already has brand awareness and recognition in export markets and destinations. And in the UK market, You may wish to continue using the EU logo in the interim, but obviously by January 2024, you will need to have switched to the new UK logo. But yeah, it's very much at this stage about using the logo that most suits your purposes. I would just add that it's essential that the trademark logo, the Welsh lamb logo and the Welsh beef logo remains on packaging throughout.
Thank you, Kirsten. I have another question which came in earlier regarding, and it's a point of clarification, probably more than anything. Probably it's worth rehearsing. And I'll read you the question, Kirsten. Can beef that is born in Wales but finished in England, as many do, be sold as Welsh?
No, so only beef that is born and reared in Wales for its entire life can be branded as Welsh. The cattle can leave Wales for the purposes of being sold in an auction market as long as they return to a Welsh holding thereafter, and they can also leave Wales for the purposes of slaughter, but all rearing must happen in Wales. Okay,
and then there was a supplementary to that, so to have my money's worth from you, Kirsten, and I think I'll leave it at this question then, unless there are any others. And then it's specifically on breeds of sheep qualifying as Welsh or not, as the case may be. So the question is, are the designations either UK or European breed specific on sheep?
No, neither. So that applies to beef and sheep, actually. Neither specification is breed specific. All breeds of cattle and all breeds of sheep qualify to be sold as Welsh lamb or Welsh beef, as long as they've been born and reared in Wales, are fully traceable and have been slaughtered and cut in an HCC approved premises.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kirsten. I think you've exhausted the questions very well. So, diolch yn fawr. We will move on to Stew Whitehead, who is the director for Oritain and sales lead in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. That's quite a big territory that you're covering, Stew. So has worked with HCC over the past 3 or 4 years to develop this very system on sheep and lamb traceability, but now has been instrumental in developing the beef traceability, which I'm no doubt you're going to talk to us about now, Stew. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gwyn. That's much appreciated. If everyone just bears with me one moment, I'll pull up my screen.
Yeah, there seems to be something coming. Yes, you're. Yeah, that's done, Stew.
Perfect. I'm not the star of one, Stew Whitehead, and even though I've been working with HCC for the past 4 years, that's probably about the extent of my Welsh. So it's a pleasure to be here and talking about this fantastic partnership that we've had over the last few years, and also extending it and developing it into beef as well. So today I'm just going to be talking about our partnership. I'm going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth overview as to Oritain and particularly the science, because I appreciate that you know, Kirsten only just sort of talked briefly over the concept. So I'll talk a bit more on the science and how it's done, and then delve a little bit deeper into our partnership. And then of course there'll be questions and answers at the end. But before I start, I just thought I'd set the tone with a rather high energy video, just to sort of set the scene on what it is that we've done in the last 6 months, particularly as it relates to beef. Brilliant. So I'll try to maintain the same tempo and energy of that video. So who is Oritain? Well, quite simply, Oritain uses forensic level science to determine the origin of products. We were founded in 2008 out of New Zealand, and I'm a proud export of not only the country I'm from, but also being based in our head office. And it was founded by Professor Russell Frew. Now, he's a world-leading expert. He's advised the likes of United Nations and done several projects with them as it relates to proving where products come from using our scientific method. We work with small and large customers all around the world. We've had an office, we've got new offices in New Zealand, Australia, obviously the UK, and now recently within the United States as well. And we primarily started in food, although we do also operate in the fashion and textile and pharmaceutical world. But yeah, food's always been at our core and verifying where products come from. And I think the real important thing to note, and certainly with our partnership with HCC, is that it's really underpinning the existing traceability of the PGI scheme. So HCC with Welsh lamb and Welsh beef, as Kirsten alluded to, has got a very specific chain of custody and requirements for such product to be labelled as PGI Welsh lamb and Welsh beef. Where Oritain plays into that is exactly sort of what their video alluded to, and that's providing an extra reinsurance so that you as consumers or you know, international buyers can have confidence that when you're buying PGI Welsh lamb and Welsh beef, that's what you're getting. And that what we do with our partnership with HCC, as they are the guardians of it, is to make sure that that is the case and that there is full trust throughout. So it's not a case of using our technology over existing traceability and being one being better than the other. It's really about underpinning it and verifying. So the science itself, as I alluded to, stems from the forensic field. And there are a couple of forensic cases here that have used the same science. However, one that's probably perhaps more familiar to everyone is the case called Finding Adam. And it was a case of probably about 3 years ago now, where there was a body found in the River Thames that didn't have any hands or feet or a head for that matter, so quite a gruesome crime. But what they did is they used the same science, isotopes and trace elements, to identify where this body had originated from, and they tracked it all the way back to a village in West Benin, Africa. And through overlapping that with immigration records and that sort of thing, they were able to actually identify who that person or who that body belonged to. So the science is really robust. What we've merely done is taken that from the forensic field and applied it into a commercial setting where we can verify and underpin the origin of products. And quite simply, you are a product of your environment. So plants, animals are absorbing naturally occurring elements within the environment. And given the very unique characteristics of the Welsh countryside, these are in abundance. And it's these trace elements and isotopes, so naturally occurring elements within the soil, the climate, even some things like feed, do all culminate together to create what we call an origin fingerprint. And what we've then gone and done is created a reference database of this origin fingerprint for both beef and, well, for lamb and now beef. And what that involved us is gone all around Wales and collected reference samples so that we can be confident that we know what Welsh beef and Welsh lamb look like, because we've covered a representative sample suite of the country of Wales. We've then analysed those to create that origin fingerprint. And then what we can do is at any stage within the supply chain, and Kirsten mentioned that we've done it at abattoirs, cutting plants, retailers and catering butchers, to determine where PGI Welsh lamb and now Welsh beef has been sold in market, that we're spot checking to ensure that that's exactly the case. So we're providing that extra assurance, that added value and integrity. And in today's day and age, that's a really, really hot topic. So we provide that verification. And one of the unique things is that it's a product test. So we're not relying on any barcodes or labels. We are testing the actual product itself. So truth with the nature, if you like. It's very manufacturing friendly. So we're not having to install or put any sort of equipment or systems in place. we go into various stages of the supply chain, take a sample and run it against that reference database. And it's commercially proven. We do this for a range of different products, so red meat, dairy, horticulture. We can even verify the shirt that I'm wearing as to where it's come from, as well as raw materials and pharmaceuticals. So we are using the science in a wide range of different areas. And I guess the real key thing in what this partnership with HCC and underpinning the PGI schemes is that it's a trust but verify sort of solution. And these are the three pillars that really underpin the partnership. So trust but verify. So obviously we trust and have confidence in the supply chain, but we want to verify that and provide that extra level of assurance. Progress and not perfection. Sometimes there will be instances where there aren't those that are playing by the rule book. And so this solution helps identify when that might be occurring, although that's not one of the primary motivations of the partnership. And the other one is truth within nature. So it goes right back. If you want to know where something has come from, you test the product itself. So it's inherent in the product, and that ensures that it's a really robust system. In terms of the partnership, it's been one that we've actually worked in since 2016 when the first sort of concept was derived. And since then, we've gone about building that reference database for lamb. And we had a period of about 2.5 years whereby we were verifying and underpinning the PGI Welsh lamb scheme. And now we're really excited to be launching this into the PGI Welsh beef. So it has been a fantastic partnership and one we're really excited to be continuing as the years progress. And so I wanted to touch on and finish on the actual checking in market and how that works. So as I alluded to, this can occur anywhere within the supply chain, and HCC and ourselves will work together various stages throughout the year and identify where we're going to take samples. So on the screen there is just an example of a few locations where we've taken some in the past. And over the 3 years to date, we've found that by and large, it's a really robust and transparent supply chain. And we've had about 97% compliance on all positive origin claims. And so we're really excited to be able to then roll this out to beef and provide those same insights back to HCC. So that's sort of a whirlwind overview of the science. I know there'll probably be plenty of questions. So yeah, more than happy to take any.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Stew. Your Welsh is coming along. It's better than it was in 2018 when I first met you anyway. So that's progress, isn't it, really? So that's good.
Exactly. Progress, not perfection.
Yes, we'll take a rain check on that for the time being, come back to you. Now then, some questions, if there are any, please put them in the function at the bottom of your screens. But I've got a few which have come in previously. And perhaps a couple of questions. One on how confident are you when you do check a product? And obviously, I suspect you're going to say it depends on the reference database. But in your experience or our experience with lamb, how confident would we be in terms of the sample and where it came from, Stew?
Great question, and that's one that's asked quite a lot. So what we pride ourselves on at Oritain is making sure that we really maximise the performance of the database. So it is really important that you do get that right, and that's why it has taken time to build it for both lamb and beef. So it's a matter of getting a good broad coverage of the reference origin that you're interested in. In terms of what we're then using that with is some pretty high level statistics. So it's based on confidence intervals, and I guess thanks to COVID, everyone now knows what a true positive and true negative rate is. So when we talk about the confidence interval, when we're classifying a sample as genuine Welsh, we've got a confidence interval of 98%. So it's a really high performing database, and we maximize our model so that we correctly identify Welsh as Welsh. So that's really important to us. We don't want to falsely accuse anyone. So yeah, it's a really robust method and performs better than a COVID test, for example.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's very high, isn't it? We've got a few questions that have come in, Stu, for you. So one is regarding the sampling, I guess. And what are we testing for? What do we test? Is it fat? Is it bone, or just meat? And then, so the supplementary to that, does it have to be raw product, or can it be cooked? So if you can answer, have a go at that.
Yeah, so we're taking samples of the muscle. So it's not the fat; it's the muscle element of it. And at the moment, it is unprocessed product that we're testing. Although we are constantly looking at refining and improving our approach, so that perhaps we could look at processed or cooked product in time. But for the time being, yeah, muscle and raw product.
Okay. And then if we go on to Tony Goodyear from Ames. Tony, good evening. And Tony's question is, do you think that you can use this technology to take the environmental elements of the producer's farm and to translate it into positive, low impact farming labeling for the consumer, i.e. probably around sustainability messages with the environmental element?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's sort of a further iteration of the Oritain business. So at the moment we're specialising in using that data from the analytical test to interpret origin. I guess the next exciting stage is looking at what else that chemical data can tell and overlapping that with perhaps other sustainability data. So yes, it could in future look to inform, well, yes, this product is from a low impact farm and link it right back to that. So that's sort of the next horizon of Oritain, is looking at what else can you infer from the data.
Okay, yes, Stu. And then David Jarrett is asking, and it's a very good question really, and it's regarding the terrain, landscape on which the animals graze. Mm-hmm. And he's giving an example on red sandstone soil in Brecknockshire in the southeast of Wales and Herefordshire in England, just across the border. How can we differentiate between those particular neighbouring counties, if that was the case?
Yep, another great question. So the science is really robust, and it can go back to a farm level of origin if required. We're not doing back to farm for this particular project. It is more just the concept of origin Wales. However, in saying that, yes, it can differentiate where there are similar soil profiles, because soil is just one such process, or one such sort of factor in that origin fingerprint. So we've had examples whereby we've able to identify and differentiate tomatoes that are in a glass house on either side of the road, same variety, same hydroponic system, yet we've been able to identify samples from a glass house on one side of the road compared to the other. So it is a really powerful science. The key is getting the reference profile right, and our science team and technical team will put a lot of effort into that. So for this particular project, we have made sure that we get comparison samples from the border because we are dealing with geopolitical lines. So it's really important that we sample those areas quite intensively to understand, what do the differences look like.
Okay. And another question, and it's worth noting that Welsh lamb and Welsh beef are in the vanguard of this technology. I'm not sure if there are any other products, red meat products in the UK using your services, Stu. And the question is related to that really, and it's regarding whether New Zealand use the traceability system for red meat products, from New Zealand and in the international marketplace.
Yeah, so I guess credit to HCC and that they are the industry body that have taken this on board and done it for the benefit of the industry. In New Zealand, we do work with some primary producers, one particular who does this on a company basis. They're not doing it on behalf of the industry. So as I'm sure you'll very much be aware, you do get competing interests when it's one specific company led. So yeah, HCC can take pride in the fact that they are the only industry body in the UK, but also we're a leader in being one of the first industry bodies to partner with us in doing this science.
Okay, and in terms of other food products, you are tracking other food products across the world, aren't you, Stu? So it's not only Welsh lamb and Welsh beef in the Northern Hemisphere, there are other products as well.
Yep. So red meat's a big one for us. So we've also partnered with Meat and Livestock Australia, as well as that one particular company I mentioned in New Zealand, Silver Fern Farms. But then we also do things like infant formula, and that's a very sensitive product given the sort of health impacts and risks within particularly the Asian market of copying and imitation. So a lot in dairy, a lot of infant formula, horticulture as well. So sort of helping monitor plant variety rights. So we work in a whole range of different products there, as well as seafood. So they're the primary areas that we're working in.
Okay.
But a huge amount in recent times has also been in the fashion and textile space. So raw materials like cotton and wool. So yeah, it's a really robust science that you can use in a whole range of different products.
Indeed. One question that has come in, Stu, which you probably often get, and very close to people's minds very often and on their lips, is the DNA testing. So if you can clarify how this DNA, how this technology that we're talking about in Oritain differs from DNA testing and the DNA technology.
Yeah, so it's a matter of what question are you wanting to answer. So DNA is more of a genetics lineage type question. So more what breed is it, what is its parenthood, that sort of thing. Whereas we're specifically focusing on origin, and for that you need to understand that nature's impact on the product. So if you think of DNA as nurture, origin in our approach is about nature and understanding where it's come from. And so that is a different question, and therefore you need a different technique to do that. And that's when the isotopes and the trace elements come into play, because that's a direct result of the environment that product was reared in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And then one last question. Is this technology, Stu, admissible in court as evidence in any particular case or challenge?
Absolutely. So if required, the science is accepted in a court of law. It stands up to what they call the Dalberg criteria, which is a standard of admissibility in which evidence can be permissible in a court of law. So our technology does stand up to that Dalberg criteria. So if required, and if there was a case where you had to take it to court or use it as an enforcement tool, you could rely on that. The key thing there is that you make sure that you've got the chain of custody, but the science itself holds strong.
Okay. Well, I think we've exhausted all the questions, Stu. Thank you very much for answering them so comprehensively. And we welcome working with you, or we look forward to working with you rather, on beef as well as lamb, and provide a very robust service and assurance for the Welsh lamb and Welsh beef supply chain in the future. So thank you, Stu, once again. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah.
We're going to go on to our last presentation now, and I'm going to call on Rhys Llywelyn, HCC's Market Development Manager, to talk about the benefits of the origin and the provenance in the marketplace and to the consumer. So Rhys, if I can hand over to you. Diolch yn fawr.
I'm just going to unmute quickly there. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity of addressing you this evening. So we've spoken about the how we do it. I guess the question that I'm hoping to answer is why we do it. Why is HCC doing this investment? What's in it for the farmer at the end of the day? So the questions I'm going to ask this evening, I'm going to move forward on my presentation here a second. It's not. Hold on. My presentation seems to be very slow or not moving forward at all.
We don't have, we have your title slide, I think, on the screen at the moment.
Yes, I'm trying to move. Here we go.
Oh,
Okay,
we've got
so
it.
what we're going to ask is what do consumers think, first of all? What will consumers pay for? What does the consumer expect from paying more? What are the brand values of Welsh beef? And why do people purchase Welsh beef? So in terms of consumers, we did a survey a few years ago asking people what they associated with Welsh beef, and 61% of consumers do associate Wales with the production of beef. 47% of consumers actually claim to always know where their beef comes from. And 85% of consumers are aware of the brand PGI Welsh Beef, which is particularly high. The important stuff then, 71% of those questioned actually preferred Welsh beef. 78% of shoppers in Wales say that they would always buy Welsh if the price is right. And 90% of those asked would always choose Welsh if there was no difference in price. So the strategy that HCC has followed for a number of years is all about getting the value from the brand. It's always been encouraging shoppers to pay more for a product because of how they view it, not necessarily of what it is. And if you look here, this is a survey of over 3,500 British supermarket shoppers, and it asked them what would they be willing to pay a little bit more for. And we can look at these. So it goes on from pet food to ice cream, dental care, beer and cider. But second, there is fresh red meat, which is key for us. And before anybody else points it out, yes, hair care product is number one. And yeah, before anybody else says it, maybe I should have been paying a little bit more for my hair care products over the years. That might have been made a difference. But it just shows that people are willing to pay more for a high quality product when it comes to fresh red meat. And what are they looking to get from paying that little bit extra? Again, from the same survey, what people said was that the origin is very important. So the origin is known and it has better animal welfare. Information on the origin helps me make a decision on what to buy. It's a better taste, the better texture, the meat is fresher, less gristle, it's a better cut of meat, and so on. So again, it shows that the origin is key to making that getting that consumer to making that purchasing decision. And then if we look at, what do people associate with PGI Welsh Beef? So first of all, it's a brand for me. About 52% of people do see it as a brand that they associate themselves with. But then some of the key brand values that we look for in PGI Welsh Beef. People see that it has a superior taste. And then two very high ones in the 80s, it's a homegrown taste, it's good quality. And then quite at the bottom, it's premium quality. So these are the views of this PGI Welsh Beef product that we do have. And then the reasons for purchasing. Again, I think these are very important. Why do people actually purchase PGI Welsh Beef? It's because of trusted farming practices. It's about freshness, less food miles, superior taste. And then the two top reasons is to benefit the local economy and support local farmers. So it just clearly demonstrates there that the association with the origin of PGI Welsh Beef does add a value to our product. And that is why we at HCC are investing this money in protecting the product and the integrity of the product that we produce. So COVID has demonstrated for us that we need this extra protection, if you like. It's food fraud is valued at 50 billion worldwide, and COVID has given those who want to commit food fraud an increased opportunity for cheating. People haven't been able to do the checks maybe in store, in the abattoirs as previously they've been able to do previously. And a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. And it's key for us to protect that reputation. And I think it was Warren Buffett that said it takes 20 years to build a reputation and just 5 minutes to ruin it. So the belt and braces approach that we take towards protecting the brand is therefore the key thing that we do for the benefit of the PGI Welsh Beef brand. So I'm happy to take any questions about any element of the work.
Thank you, Rhys. And perhaps just to clarify, and I did mislead at the start, we don't have the hand function apparently on this Zoom call to ask questions. So if there are any questions, please put them in the Q&A box or icon at the bottom. So I'm sorry about that. We don't have the ability to ask live questions. Now then, Rhys, I've got a question which has come in, and it's regarding the sort of the added value to the provenance of Welsh lamb and Welsh beef with the technology attached. And the question is regarding, is it true and do supermarkets and the food service sector, do they actually add value, or do they think it adds value to their offering to the consuming public?
Yeah, I'd certainly say so. I think much of the work we do, especially in new markets worldwide, is about trust. It's about gaining the trust of the consumer, the retailers, the importers, and so on. And it's trust in the supply, in the quality of the product and the authenticity of the product. And to be able to say that we use technology that can stand up in court, forensic technology, to protect the integrity of our product, to make sure that it is the authentic product, is invaluable, really, and just stands us in excellent stead when we do speak to the retailers, whether it's in the UK or further afield.
Okay, diolch, Rhys. I think I have one more question just to finish off with. And given that we've been doing or using the technology rather since 2018 on lamb, do we think it's had a positive impact on volume and value of lamb sales, Rhys, in the retail sector?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably immeasurable, in fact, because how do you give a value on trust and assurance? But it's definitely been something that we've been using when we do speak to retailers, when we speak to the buyers, the importers. We do mention this technology that we have, and that we do have that belt and braces approach to ensuring the authenticity of our product. So it is definitely of an immense value and does add value to the product.
Okay, thank you, Rhys. And I think David Jarrett, NFU, and his comments are an interesting presentation, and is asking on the back of the slide regarding the consumer feedback, is it worth repeating the survey for those who eat out in the food service sector, given that we're possibly coming out of lockdown?
Yes, certainly, David. I think that survey was actually done pre-lockdown, but it is key for us that we do. The provenance has proven during lockdown that people do actually, they do select a product on where it's on the origin. That has shown how the retail sales for Welsh lamb over lockdown have grown significantly. And it is hoped that as we move out of restrictions and we see more people dining out, that we see people actually requesting to know about the provenance of the products that they eat when they're eating out. And it would be great if we could see similar levels of labelling for product on menus in the out of home sector that we do in retail at the moment, and that would benefit us definitely. So you know, I think it's a key area that we need to do work on, but I think it's key as well for us as consumers to actually ask more when we are dining out about where that product comes from, be it meat or whatever other product that you're purchasing.
Rhys, I'm going to have to ask you another question, and it's related to assurance and farm assurance schemes on the production side, and how important are they as schemes to build trust, to support the authentication or provenance of any products with the consumers. So slightly different tact. It's about systems of production as opposed to the product.
Yeah, I think, you know, we live in a world now where the consumer, the consumer choice and what the consumer is expecting from a product, you know, is at the forefront of that purchasing decision. So animal welfare, the environment, all of these things come together to get that purchasing decision made by the consumer. So, you know, I think that there's a role for all of these schemes really to work together to give the consumer the confidence that we do have production systems, you know, in Wales and the UK that have the highest animal welfare standards and have the you know, the environmental credentials, and also, of course, that the product is authentic. So all of these schemes need to work together to give consumers that confidence to make that purchasing decision.
Diolch, Rhys. I think we have come to the end of the questions. So all that remains for me to do is to just wrap up the webinar. And can I thank, first of all, the presenters who have been very clear and concise, and I thank you all for your information that you have shared with us all. If there are further questions, of course, from any of the attendees, well, get in touch with us, obviously, and you could email or submit your questions still after the webinar closes. But I think we are in a strong position. We have some very strong brands. We need to look after those brands in the marketplace and capitalize on the value that those brands bring to the industry and the whole supply chain. And I think we must cherish that. I will leave you with one thought, probably. Imitation is probably the sincerest form of flattery. But what I would say, we can want to dissuade any imitation going forward, and we can certainly live without the flattery, given now that we've got this robust scheme and in place for the brands. So I'll leave you with those thoughts. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much for your participation, all of you, and I hope you've enjoyed the last hour in our company, and look forward to meeting up with you again online, or indeed once we get through this in person. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.